of Cortez was insatiable. So the heathen gods placed upon the gold a terrible curse.
The titular curse in Pirates of the Caribbean, the Curse of the Black Pearl, is weird. More specifically, there's a glaring dissonance between what the curse is meant to be and what it actually is. Listen to how it's initially set up.
An immortal that removes but a single piece from that stone chest shall be punished for eternity.
And yet, only a few lines later,
There is one way we can end our curse. All the scattered pieces of the Aztec gold must be restored and the blood repaid.
that setup is instantly negated. The curse by definition isn't eternal. In fact, it is mentioned multiple times in the film that
She's been preying on ships and settlements for near 10 years.
that doesn't sound like that much time for something that was meant to last forever. And really, why would these gods even have to include a way to end the curse in the first place? The terrible condition of the pirates is the driving force behind this entire story, and yet it seems to be complete nonsense. When you think about it like this, the curse kind of starts to fall apart. It seems that these rules don't really exist to make sense within the story, but more to keep the narrative adhering to the specific path the writers required, such as making sure that the pirates don't have to kill Elizabeth when they try to break the curse for the first time. I thought it was an unfortunate but largely understandable compromise, a concession made in favor of the fairly intricate back and forth narrative. But on a recent rewatch, I noticed something. Something not immediately obvious, but significant. So significant that it made me wonder if this curse that I always considered to be the weak link of this film might actually be the thing that thematically binds it together. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain. In case you don't remember the details, the gold in question was originally given to Cortez as an offering, meant to stave off his slaughter of the Aztecs. When that failed, the heathen gods retaliated by putting a curse on the chest. Anyone who takes the gold is stripped of all sensation. They can no longer feel anything or satisfy any of their desires, and they also cannot die. Now, on the surface, this looks like your common ironic punishment, not unlike any other you might see in a story involving the supernatural. Those who took everything from others are left unable to experience anything at all. That seems like bog standard poetic justice. But if I ask you to think of other narratives that involve an element of the eternal or divine punishment, what comes to mind? I'd be willing to bet that most people would go straight for Greek mythology, most likely to Sisyphus being made to push a boulder forever, or maybe Prometheus' liver being eaten by an eagle every day, or maybe even the myth that clearly inspired the curse we're discussing, Tantalus, who is forever starving, just out of reach of food. Just like in Pirates, it's a key feature of these punishments that they are highly ironic. Sisyphus' cunning escape of death is punished by a monotonous, inescapable task, and Tantalus baked his son into a pie and served it to the gods, therefore he has to starve forever.
Apple.
However, as you might have been able to spot, there is a crucial difference between these myths and the Aztec Curse. All the Greek ones are actually inescapable. There's no way for Sisyphus to break the stone, no magical eagle feathers for Prometheus to pluck. They are truly suffering forever. With the Aztec Curse, on the other hand, it's not even just that it can be broken, but that it is essentially designed to be. With the afflicted being immortal and also entirely unfeeling, they have nothing else to do except spend all of their time working on curing themselves, other than perhaps gathering even more treasure to enjoy for after they have freed themselves.
10 years of hoarding swag.
Now we finally get to spend it.
Okay, so let's exclude punishments that are inescapable and try something else. In the story of The Little Mermaid, or rather the original story, the non-Disneyfied version, after giving her voice up to be with the prince, the mermaid fails to make him fall in love with her. For this, she's punished by turning into sea foam without the possibility of an afterlife. Before that happens though, the mermaid's sisters offer her a way out. She can kill the prince and spill his blood on her feet to become a mermaid again. Blood binding and unbinding contracts and hexes is a common element in stories, and is also shared with the Aztec Curse. But again, there is a crucial element missing here that is present in The Little Mermaid, a sacrifice. To free herself, the mermaid would have to kill the very man she was willing to risk it all for, and then have him bleed out onto her feet. Meanwhile, in Pirates...
That's it?
waste not.
Okay, so no eternal punishments and nothing involving a sacrifice. In that case, the story that actually comes the closest to including a curse like the one in Pirates is a different fairy tale, one in which the victim also turns into a monster and then has to fulfill a difficult, seemingly impossible task to free himself. I'm talking of course about the Beauty and the Beast. Like the Pirates, the Beast also isn't losing or sacrificing anything, and in fact if he succeeds he comes out having gained true love. Of course that once again doesn't end up happening in the original version, but that's besides the point. It is his suffering and effort in completing the task itself that come together to redeem him. In other words, he learns a lesson. In Pirates though, nobody learns anything. Had the crew succeeded in curing themselves, they'd be free to be the same band of scumbags they were when they started. But really, even if they did learn something, that wasn't really the point, was it? This wasn't meant to be a learning moment, it was supposed to be divine retribution. Vengeance for the near erasure of an entire civilization of people, potentially the destruction of these gods' whole system of belief. How is it that the fate of the cursed isn't at minimum total destruction? The Aztec Curse takes elements from all the stories I mentioned, but puts them in a union which seems to systematically remove any sort of lasting consequence. The pirates suffer, but not eternally. They bleed, but don't bleed out. They give something up, but nothing too important, and for all that, they don't learn anything. It's as if the writers went out of their way to subvert every single established trope of how curses are meant to work in stories. Don't get me wrong, subversion is all well and good, but not to the point that it leaves the central conflict of your film with more holes than the ships that sail in.
Stop blowing holes in my ship!
So is it all just incidental? In trying to facilitate a complex narrative, did the writers of the Pirates of the Caribbean accidentally stumble into creating what is essentially the perfect anti-curse? Well, there is one more thing. Something all these stories do have in common that I have yet to mention. Something quite universal, which even the curse of the Aztec gods couldn't subvert. In the Greek myths, the lesson is fairly clear. Immoral behavior, hubris, and trying to outsmart the gods is never going to end well. And in The Little Mermaid, her refusal to take the life of the prince doesn't save her from becoming sea foam, but does allow her to an afterlife. And so the message is that true love is not found in passion, but in self-sacrifice. And so what about Pirates? In all its breaking of convention, is there some deeper truth the curse is meant to convey?
Now, as long as you're just hanging there, pay attention. The only rules that really matter are these. What a man can do and what a man can't do.
The only rules that matter are what a man can do and what a man can't do. In other words, nothing that can be done is off limits, and nothing is so sacred as to not be fair game. In the view of Pirates of the Caribbean, it's not possible to create a curse that could not somehow be overcome. It's the very central principle of this world that the rules are, at the end of the day, more actual guidelines. The gods can bend over backwards trying to create a poetically just punishment, but there doesn't exist any moral framework that would make sure that such a punishment turns out the way it was supposed to. There are no rules saying that someone doing evil will be punished, or at least there don't seem to be. The scene that introduces Jack Sparrow is often cited as one of the best character introductions of all time. It opens on Jack majestically sailing into Port Royal atop a mast of what we assume to be a ground ship. This is just before it is revealed that he is actually in a tiny sinking boat, having to bucket out water to stay afloat. After Jack makes it to port, and as soon as he sets foot on the pier, he is immediately stopped by a clerk who wants him to pay for leaving his boat there, as well as give his name for the record. Jack offers him extra money to leave his name off, which the clerk accepts with no hesitation. Jack then proceeds to walk a few steps and casually snatch a purse off the clerk's desk. It is true that this is an incredible introduction to Jack as a character. It manages to convey pretty much everything about him in a total of about 2 minutes. But it is overlooked just how good it is at also introducing the rules of the narrative. It plainly demonstrates that at all times there will be 2 or more parties making deals with each other, and that the circumstances of those deals will keep changing. Who comes out on top depends on who is the best at realizing the change has occurred and capitalizing on it. And at the same time, there are also powers that want to impose their own permanently binding rules, one which transcend the changing circumstances. The law, the pirate code, the rules of engagement or an actual engagement, or an ancient terrible curse. All of them are the same. The ones who create them, and even more so the ones who expect them to be obeyed, end up outmaneuvered.
So this is where your heart truly lies, then?
It is.
Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark is a swashbuckling action-adventure summer blockbuster. It launched a franchise which started off with two well-regarded sequels and then proceeded to drop off a cliff. At the climax of the film, Indiana is able to find a way to avoid the consequences of coming into contact with the relic at the center of the story, while the Nazis perish because of it. But it is not by his own cunning that Indy does this. Instead, he closes his eyes, knowing that even seeing the Ark leads to death. Despite his own skepticism towards the supernatural, he ultimately comes to acknowledge that there are things not meant for humans to interfere with, even as much as witness. It is Indiana's respect for the world's natural moral order that allows him to survive and save Marion. Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl is a swashbuckling action-adventure summer blockbuster. It launched a franchise which started off with two well-regarded sequels and proceeded to get hit by a bus. At the climax of the film, Jack Sparrow is able to find a way to avoid the consequences of coming into contact with the relic at the center of the story, while Barbossa perishes because of it. And that is entirely by Jack's own cunning that he does this. He exploits the ancient curse to his benefit, leveraging his temporary immortality. In this, he shows no respect for the divine purpose of the curse. He has zero skepticism towards the existence of the supernatural, yet he looks at this terrible ancient magic as nothing more than any other variable. At worst, it's an obstacle, and at best, it's a tool. It is by finding a way to exploit this instrument of moral judgment that he is able to defeat Barbossa, as well as to save Will. And in this lies the true nature of the narrative in Pirates of the Caribbean. There is no comeuppance for the wicked, no punishment for immoral behavior, no consequences for challenging the divine design of the gods. Hold on a moment. Jack does defeat Barbossa and save Will, right?
I must admit, Jack, I thought I had you figured. It turns out you're a hard man to predict.
Just before he starts the climactic fight, Jack already has everything that he wanted. He's been granted command of the Black Pearl, and if he leaves things as they are, he will also escape arrest by the Royal Navy. Sure, he still has a grudge against Barbossa, but there will be plenty of time to resolve that later at a more opportune moment. But he gives all that up. Unless Jack's highest priority is immediate and total vengeance against the whole crew of the Pearl, what he does makes no sense at all.
And then they made me their chief.
Elizabeth!
In the first 15 minutes of the film, Jack is close to talking his way into commandeering a ship. Just then, unconscious Elizabeth falls into the water. When he sees no one else will help, Jack doesn't hesitate to jump in after her, even though he could have easily just used the situation to steal the ship and get away before anybody could stop him. When he saves Will, it is the second time he has outright given up being the captain of a ship to save someone's life. And fair enough, Barbossa's death doesn't happen as a direct result of the curse, but is it any less poetic for it? He dies with Jack as his second in command, the same position Barbossa held when he betrayed Jack 10 years prior. And for all that time, Barbossa has been pursuing the ability to feel pleasure again, but he dies feeling nothing. Nothing but cold. There's clearly a problem here. Throughout the film, the story has held the view that there is no moral order, that there are no higher principles everyone should follow, and that those who do follow something like them end up worse off for it. And yet, here we have an antagonist who meets an ironic, fitting end, and a main character who wins not by pursuing his desires, but instead his sense of what's right. How can these diametrically opposed conclusions possibly be resolved?
Me, I'm dishonest. And a dishonest man you can always trust to be dishonest. Honestly. It's the honest ones you want to watch out for, because you can never predict when they're going to do something incredibly stupid.
Jack will be the first to obscure his do-gooder tendencies, to hide his moral compass, and to be fair, most of the time, it is also the much smarter play. It seems that whenever he does let his conscience win, his immediate reward is always more problems. But then again, those good deeds do come back to save him as well. Again and again, as if they just can't help themselves. When Jack goes into the cave at Isla de Muerta for the first time, he tells his crew to keep to the pirate's code. Any man who falls behind is left behind. Behind this shroud of pirate legalism, he just told them that, were he to fail, they should save themselves instead of going into danger to save him. That seems almost selfless. And how is it that this selfless deed is repaid?
Thought you were supposed to keep to the code.
We figured they were more actual guidelines.
Jack wants to appear dishonest, the selfish, pragmatic paragon of piracy, unconcerned with notions of justice and fairness. And the world of the Pirates of the Caribbean is the same. It routinely punishes do-gooders and rewards rule-breakers, and it outright rejects the idea that divine punishment could be inescapable, that cosmic justice would go as far as to assert itself. But in their most pivotal moments, the moments where everything is on the line, neither Jack nor the world can help but loosen up on that rule. I'm Samuel Mračka. Thank you for watching.
Bring me that horizon.